Potato week, this of course, if you're following my spring planning shuffle, this might be pushed a little more into April after our Easter weeks, but I'm gonna go ahead with March week 3, potato week. All right, so potato week is of course another Rutabug story. You'll notice that spring is Rutabug's season. So a lot of Rutabug, each gnome is kind of represented by the season, not only in their kind of cover, but in story as well. We really get to know each one even a little more through the season. So Rutabug is our spring gnome, his gardening gnome, and so lots of fun. We just get to know him very well this season, which is a lot of fun. So potatoes, after the potato harvest of the previous, our Clover Week story does end in a nice potato harvest for Rutabug. He had given some potatoes to Petty Pom, and he checks on Petty Pom and notices that Petty Pom is eating the potatoes raw and does not like them, which you can imagine why. And so Rutabug is like, well, have you tried cooking them? And so he then goes to show all the different things you can do with potato, because of course potato is Rutabug's favorite vegetable. It is also, fun fact, what he was born out of. So Rutabug was born of a potato. So he loves potatoes and he loves to eat potatoes. They were each born out of the thing that they kind of care for. So Rutabug's born out of potato. He loves potatoes. He loves to eat potatoes. He loves to grow potatoes. So when Petty Pom says, I don't like potatoes, it's like, you can do so many things with potatoes. So you have this song. We only have one. This week we only have one song, the Lovely Potato Song. It is a really fun one. And of course, if you also happen to be a Lord of the Rings fan, you might especially enjoy the lyrics of this one. It is a fun nod to Lord of the Rings. So potatoes, lovely potatoes. You can do lots of things with potatoes. And then of course, he makes Petty Pom delicious potatoes and he loves them. So they eat and enjoy potatoes together. So you have lovely potato songs. It's a really fun one, super easy one for kids to enjoy. And it's just lovely. All right, so we're gonna start our week with cinnamon clove Play-Doh, which tends to actually look like a potato. So cinnamon clove Play-Doh will be familiar if you've been with us through winter and autumn. Otherwise, it's kind of one of our classic recipes. It's warm, it's cozy, it's just a lovely way to greet children in the morning. And then it's a great way to make potatoes because it does look like potatoes. Then we are going to start potting potatoes. So if you did read or watch, if you read my little spring planning tips in the book, or if you watch the spring planning, you'll know that we will be potting potatoes. So you will need seeded potatoes, which means an old potato with lots of little sprouts. So if you want to start planning that now, you can just leave potatoes on the windowsill. They'll do it themselves. Or if that's not possible for you, or if you don't plan ahead as far, you can also just get seed potatoes from a garden store, either one. But regardless, you will need some seeded potatoes, and then just get some soil. And this is a really fun indoor planting activity for children because a potato is so big. You can put it in, and it's not as little as some seeds, and then they can start to sprout. And then in a few weeks, when we do planting week, you'll get to put it in the ground. So do take a note of your own, your local climate and your planting zone for when things should and can go in the ground. But otherwise, we get to pot these potatoes and then put them on the windowsill and wait for them to sprout. So it's a great way for children to start caring for a little plant of their own. Right? Let's see here. All right, great. Then morning activity for our baking day is peeling potatoes. So of course this will need some guidance. We want to make sure our children stay safe and they're peeling away from their little fingers, but this is also a great skill for them to start to practice. So it's always good for children to become familiar with kitchen tools and have good respect for them so they know how to use them, and we can guide them through that and prevent injury while still letting them come alongside and prepare our food. And these potatoes will go into our baking recipe. So if I'm preparing for this day, I'm going to have them peeling the potatoes, and then the potatoes that they peel are going to go right in a pot of boiling water, and I'm going to boil them whole until they're fork tender but not completely falling apart, because I want them to see that whole potato, because that's going to go into our potato bread. So step one is our morning activity, peel the potato. Then while they're, if you're preparing cleaning up or preparing for circle time, those are going to go in the boiling water. Get those out, let those cool a little bit, maybe move on with your circle, and then when you're ready to come back for baking day, so yes, you're going to boil them whole, which I know typically if you're doing mashed potatoes, you chop them up, but you do want to boil them whole. I guess you can chop them if you want, but I like the child to see kind of a whole potato go into the bread. And I think the recipe for the child's portion, you'll do a half a potato. You don't need a whole one for the child's portion, but I love them to see a real full potato go into their bread. So you're gonna boil that whole, peeled but whole, and then let them cool down a little bit. If you're doing the whole full portion, you'll use a few more potatoes. If you're doing the child portion, you can cut one in half. And then I like to put it in their little bowl with the foamy yeast. So typically so did I get ahead of myself? We're making potato bread, if I didn't say that. So we're making potato bread for our main baking day activity. And so we're gonna boil those potatoes to prepare for our potato bread. So before your lesson, you want to boil your potato. You'll also want to get your yeast foamy. So active dry yeast, you want to kind of activate with the warm water and sugar and yeast and let that sit until it's foamy. Now, typically when I do yeast bread with children, I do the whole dough process beforehand, and then I present it to them as after the first rise where they're just punching and kneading. It's very simple and a lot of fun. This time, however, I do want them to see the potato go into the bread. That's kind of, seeing from, especially since they just got to see a potato go in the ground, really see what you can do with a potato and see how when we boil a potato, we can even put it into bread. So the process here is going to be a little bit different. It is going to be a little messier, a little stickier. So just kind of mentally prepare that this is going to be more hands-on, because the process of taking kind of a yeast mixture to a full kneadable dough can take some time and care. So just have some extra flour ready and just kind of mentally prepare yourself that it might be a little bit more of a messy baking day, right? So you're gonna take that foamy yeast, you're gonna take your boiled potato, either large or half, and you're gonna have your softened butter, all of these things, and you're gonna give them a little masher, and they're gonna mash that potato right into their bread mixture. Then they're gonna stir, they're gonna add that all together and mix their bread, and then add your flour until you can get to a kneadable dough. Knead the dough, let it rise, and then carry on with your recipe. All right, so a few more steps involved, but I do love having them see a full potato get mashed into their dough mixture, and then you get to eat a lovely, delicious potato bread, right? Someone said we're currently ice painting with his body, so we're familiar with mess. Yes, embrace the mess when you can. It is discovery, it is childhood, it's a good thing. But just prepare mentally that potato bread might be a little messier an activity, but it's good because they get to see really what happens, all right? Then our painting day, we're starting off simple, offer some beeswax crayons, and then our painting day, we're gonna do wet on wet painting with just green. So you can pre-mix some green if you're using the Stockmar blue and yellow, or you can just use a green palette, however you would like to present. But this does kind of go along with kind of St. Patrick's-ish, which if you are shuffling, this potato week this year might get pushed after Easter into April, but regardless, it's spring, it's green, so we're going to just let them really experience green on the paper. And one thing I do love about just offering one color at a time, because sometimes it's like, why just one color? That's boring, right? Instead of them getting to see different hues and colors working together on the paper, they really get to just soak in that color and see the different values on the paper, where you get a little bit of light green here and then more pigment is dark green, and you just get to see the color for what it is. It's kind of a whole color experience. So offering one color, especially for our little ones, is just a really simple way for them to just kind of get the hang of painting and get the hang of color and really experience that color truly for what it is and all the different values and shades as they paint on the paper, rather than just a million colors at once, And of course, previously in our Clover Week activity, the whole goal was to make brown. But sometimes, with just one color, even a 2-year-old can create a beautiful painting with just one color, something you can use for cards or activities, because just one color on the page is just beautiful. So I really do love when we just offer one color, even to older children, to see what they can do with just one color.